Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Strong Female Lead. I am one of your co-hosts, Tessa.
And I'm Tricia.
And we have a very special guest with us today to talk about our very special show. Her name is Leslie Robinson. Leslie, say hello to the peeps.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I feel so honored to be able to talk about this show because it's crazy.
We are so excited to have you. I am so excited because you have the most experience with the show. And that show, we warned you last week, that show is Pretty Little Liars. Mm-hmm. Just take a moment and bask in it because I am just like shaking. I'm so excited. I'm like, this show is insanity.
I don't know if that's a good thing that I have the most experience, but I'm here for it.
Leslie has her PhD in Pretty Little Liars. And Leslie and I have history. So you have been cutting my hair for what, 2 years?
I think it's 2 or even longer. I've been in Chicago now for 4.
Okay. And I've been here for 3. So I've been going to your salon for 2 years. Zach for longer than that. Zach told me to go to Leslie, and I didn't want to just because he was telling me to. So I didn't for a little bit. And then I decided, okay, fine, then I'll go. And I haven't turned back. I have no regrets. And so I've been seeing you for about 2 years, and not until last week were you, Zach, and I ever in the same room when we both went to have our hair cut because you started your new business. So you extracted yourself from the chains, the ball and chain of the like corporate hair salon situation, and you went off on your own because you're fucking SFL.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's great that we finally got to meet because I'm always doing the middleman, and so it was good to put us all in one room. I don't know who talked louder, but we got through it.
Yeah. And of course, like your job, without you even wanting it to be, or maybe with you wanting it to be, is part therapist, at least for some people. And so I just am used to bearing my heart and soul to my hairstylist. I've been doing that since I was younger. I was just like, here, listen to me, please. Let's chat, let's share, let's have our hearts hug. And then Zach isn't really like that. And so I was very curious, like just, I don't know, were you going to out me? I didn't think so. But, it was just really funny to have all 3 of us.
That's actually a great thing to talk about is not only do I feel like a therapist, but I also feel like I get therapy because I am also a talker, and, our relationship is a little different than Zach because Zach loves my stories and then he just likes to live through me, where you and I were like, oh my God, I feel that way too. And then you feel better because you don't feel like you're alone. So yeah, that's a lot of what I do and why I love what I do.
So there we are.
That's amazing. And I'm not jealous at all. Whatever. Don't even, whatever.
We can talk about that later.
But so I've been trying to get Leslie on the show for a while, yet we never really followed through. And so I thought, you know what, we're going to make this happen. And I remember you saying we talked about Pretty Little Liars maybe at one time, or maybe I just brought it up as a show we were going to talk about on the pod. And you said you loved it. And I said, well, fuck it, we're recording in a week. Let's go. And here we are.
Yeah,
I binged 24 hours later just so I remembered some things. I woke up for some haircuts this morning and I'm like, I got this. I had some coffee. It's totally fine. And now here we are.
Honestly, watching it, when you finish watching it, it feels like you came out of a coma. This show
does
really, really insane. So Tessa, why don't you tell the listeners what SFL is all about for those newbies out there, and then we'll get into this shit show.
Guys, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. This is a podcast we talk about women in TV and film and whether or not Hollywood is getting it right or if they fuck the shit up again. In this instance, I'm gonna go ahead and cap for they got it right, even though everything logical in me is telling me that they got it wrong, and everything that is fun and loves the drama and lives for it sort of is like they got it right. This show
so wrong
to a T,
that it's
so
right.
wrong. It's so
it's
wrong,
right.
and it's right at the same time.
But it's very interesting going backwards for that. Like you watched it when it first came out and you're like, oh my God, it's the best show ever. And then you watch it again and you're like, no fucking way did they just do that. Like that would never fly.
It's appalling. Right? There are parts of it that are truly appalling. And I first watched it in 2015. So it wasn't right when it came out, but it struck me as like very candy coated, like very palatable, easy to watch. But I didn't like feel appalled in the way that I felt appalled during my second watching, like truly appalled at some of the storylines and how like dangerous they were in the way that they were told, and on a children's like teen network. This isn't like later. They like sugarcoated it so it could be on a teen show, but like the storylines were for like a rated R movie.
Oh my God, it's just like HBO. Disney. They talk about like everything that's wonderful, but like deep down, if you get to the root of what the storyline is, it's like somebody's parents died and it's horrible. But you're smiling. It's not a happy ending.
Yeah, yeah.
Lots of parents died.
Oh, sad face.
Always, it's true.
Just immediately when you say that, I just immediately go to Bambi. I'm like, no, trauma. My first trauma.
Your first Lion King. Trauma.
Guys,
okay, guys.
This is not even about the show. We'll have to pick up later on that one because, oh my God, I could talk forever.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're going to cover.
Yeah.
We're just going to talk season 1, right?
Yeah. So should I give a little premise for anyone who, for some reason, has not already started Pretty Little Liars? Let me give you just the premise. This is the Wikipedia version, so don't come for me when it doesn't describe the show.
Don't come at her
at all. But the premise. So, Pretty Little Liars, set in the suburban town of Rosewood, Pennsylvania. The series follows the lives of 5 high school girls: Spencer Hastings, Allison DeLaurentis, Aria Montgomery, Hannah Marin, and Emily Fields. I don't think I knew any of their last names right now.
It didn't matter.
Whose clique falls apart after the leader of the group, Allison, goes missing. 1 year later, which is where the series picks up, the remaining estranged friends are reunited as they begin receiving messages from a mysterious villain named A, and later AD, who threatens and tortures them for the mistakes and lies they've made and told before and after Allison's death. At first, they think it's Allison herself, but after her body is found, the girls realize that it's somebody else who wants revenge. Okay, so that was a pretty good premise, fine.
Yeah, I think that was pretty well described.
Yeah. Normally they are not this good. It'll be like, yeah, boy meets girl. And I'll be like, that's not what happened at all.
So it's almost like, where do we begin?
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, yeah.
Well,
I have 4 pages of notes of shit that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Or, oh, what? So I'm like looking over my notes. Yeah.
Another reason why I love having guests is they're so much more prepared than Tessa and I.
No.
And you always bring a lot of stuff in, because I just, when we do this weekly, I don't have it in me to do that kind of studying. And it's really exciting when people come on that did it. So how about we just start with these female leads?
Yeah.
The liars.
The liar.
Who is, okay, let's start. Spencer.
Oh, wait.
Thoughts? What?
I was going to say, should we do high lows like in the show? Like, what was your highest high and your lowest low?
Oh my gosh, I could do that.
Okay. I love that they did that at the dinner with Spencer and her family. And I was like, thank you. This family. Oh God, this family.
Yes. Could you imagine being at that dinner table with Spencer's family though? Like,
Yes.
I had like trauma. Like, I was like, oh my God, I need to see my therapist after that episode. Get out of here.
What I also thought was, oh, go ahead, Tessa.
I know, I was gonna say, I feel like I've been at family dinners that have been tense like that. I'm like, not when I'm like sneaking drinks from people and just like flirting up my sister's boyfriends, but like,
oh my God,
tension at a table in public like that. Yeah, definitely been there.
I've been at super tense family dinners where someone was sneaking me alcohol, but no, it was not someone's fiance or I like
a kiss later. Yeah, cool.
Inappropriately like flirting, because that was insane.
Yeah.
But like, what I thought was so funny is, so this was made in 2010, and the way to show that her parents are like super busy, it's like in the episode notes, like, always be on your phone for the parents. And that's how people are all the time now.
Yeah.
So watching them just be inattentive, like, I remember thinking like, what assholes, like, put your fucking phone down, live in the moment. And like, fast forward, that is everybody. That is everybody.
So true. So true.
But they look like jerks. You're like, God, like, absentee father that is still there. Thanks, Mom. You know, like, but okay, so high low of the season.
Yeah.
Tessa, why don't you go first? Your idea.
Well, my highest high is that I did really like the relationship between Emily and Maya. I love the self-discovery. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. I love the treatment of that relationship. I thought they did it really well. In some areas, I'm like, there were things that I would change if I could change things. But for the most part, that was my high. I really thought it was like respectful of that journey. And I loved how accepting the liars were of Emily, and encouraging of her to express herself and to come to resolution with her identity. I appreciated that. But she was allowed to do it on her own time. No one was like, well, I mean, they did invite Maya to the dance, but
well, see,
the intention was good.
The intention is good. And that was like one of the major things that I went through on this show, because I am a lesbian and I work with a lot of queer people. And first of all, can we just talk about how like they cast a queer person to play this role, and she's a fucking supermodel. Like, in what life does that happen? That doesn't even happen, and she's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, Maya was.
Well, both of them.
Both
Emily
of them.
Too. They're both.
Is Emily
is like unreasonably
Get out of
pretty.
here.
Yeah.
Wait, is Emily queer?
Yeah.
In real life?
Oh, is she?
No.
Oh, okay. But then Maya is?
Fact check that, but I'm pretty sure she's not. No, I don't think any of them are in real life. That's the whole point, is like, you're having this lead, but you can't even find a queer person.
Yeah,
Hello, we're everywhere.
Got it. I thought you said that was the high, like they hired, like a lesbian to play a lesbian, which would have been very progressive for 2010.
Yeah.
We weren't there yet.
That's what I had to remind myself is, okay, it's 2010. It's not 2021. But I mean, it was good that they played and allowed that to happen. But it reminds me of like Netflix with the LGBT like genre. And it's like every LGBT story that you hear about is like some trauma story about how they came out. And it's like, okay, let's move on. So I think they're getting better at it, but it was nice that they did that. I just really hated how Mom reacted. Mom was so sad, and it's like, it's not even about you.
I know. And you know, and the women were gorgeous, but that plays into the male fantasy, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Of lesbians, where it was like, oh yeah, they could be into each other, but they need to look like this. It's like, Maya was the most stunning.
Just do it in front of me and then I'll accept it. Yeah, cool.
Right.
Like, can I watch? No.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're very feminine, very like lipstick fantasy, but like, fine. Okay. So at least her friends were nice to her about that. I mean, that was a good.
Hannah was very nice to be like, I just want you to be happy. And I want you to bring whoever you want to the dance. And it's so like, it reminds me of like one of those movies that's like a drama story, or like you know, the wheels turn. What was that? Days of Our Lives type, like soap opera vibes. Especially like the music in the beginning. Like, did anybody else get the Seventh Heaven vibe with like the and it's like so like
it was,
I don't even know, but
it was totally Weeds, just like a very young version of Weeds. And I was like, yeah, there's some similarities between that show and this show, with people like not really having consequences for murder, and hiding crimes.
And that song, God,
it reminded me of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Can you keep it for a secret?
Gotta lock it in your pocket.
That's the only part we know.
I mean, it is so catchy. It is so catchy. It's like a pop song, and that just sticks. And the stuff with the music too was very literal. Like they would have a scene, and then there would be like a lyric that told you what the scene was about. I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, we get it.
Yeah.
But like that, like the Secret song, like it's adorable, but like it, it does fit perfectly. But like, smack us in the face with what this is about.
Well, and even just talking about like that rom-com vibe, I feel like Arya and Ezra were a spitting image of that, like, you know, Days of Our Lives type soap opera, like just the way they talk to each other and the way they stare at each other. It was very interesting to see that too.
They were my lowest low. I was like, everything about this I hate about this relationship. I absolutely hate it. I hate that this was represented this way. I feel troubled for people who were watching this and for storylines like this that persist today, where it's not made abundantly clear that this is an inappropriate relationship that should not be happening.
I was going to say my lowest low was the blatant sex abuse.
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
Romanticized, because that's what it
with
was.
Hannah's
like,
mom?
No, with Ezra and Arya.
Oh, that.
Like, I mean, she is not 18 and he is, they don't like
into his mid-20s. You'd have to
what they take it, they sort of seem to like not make it seem like he's grooming her, but he is an abuser. And so was Ren.
Yes.
And I was like, hold on. But then it made me think of the show A Teacher. It has oh God, it's not Mara Rooney, it's her sister, that actress. And it's the same story, except the teacher meets the kid in class. The teacher's a woman, and it has trigger warnings in the beginning and sex abuse hotline number because of the grooming that takes place, and it's more blatant. But that is what I mean. He is not. It is so bad, but they make her seem not innocent because she's a liar and she's doing all this other stuff.
Yeah, because like, she's the one who told the lie to meet him, and so that somehow makes it okay that this relationship persists. And I was like, this is not okay. And they should put warnings before they, when you buy this, because I had to buy season 1. I don't regret that at all. That was $10 well spent. But they need to put something on this, because if you're just consuming this content, again, as a young person, I would be worried. If I was getting this, like if I was in 2010 an actual preteen watching this, I wouldn't think there's anything that wrong with that relationship. And I'm like,
oh my God, yeah.
It's sex abuse.
That kind of ties into my low of the low, actually. Because
are we the same person, Leslie?
We might
just
be
like resonating on a level. I'm excited.
Seriously. I mean, so that brings me to Hannah and her mom, and kind of ties in with the cop too. But like all the scenes with them at their house, it is so like bad with like body image, and like they're always in the mirror, like putting more makeup on, yet the cop guy goes to the fridge in a fucking towel and nothing else. And it's like, I just don't understand how we didn't know this as females. We did not see this until now, or like didn't understand it. I think it's always kind of been like something doesn't feel right. But the fact that we watch these shows and we're like, that's what I'm supposed to be like. And in those uncomfortable godly heels, running around, getting like trying to escape murder, like, come on.
The grooming.
I would have been the first to die.
The grooming of these girls, like starting at the funeral, where I'm like, wow, what is happening? Why is everyone like dressed to T? And like they're just they look so good and put together throughout. And Hannah's mom, it was very, very sad because she was like always set up and put together perfectly, and then downplayed, you know, her own strengths and her own abilities.
And to be told that she has to sleep with the cop to get her daughter off. Like, sex is what's going to get you off the hook. Like, what?
Was she just an escort? Because all of her calls that she was taking when she would enter a scene never made sense to me. And I was like, she's just an escort and trying to cover it up. So for Hannah, like, just like say you're an escort. Like, you're an escort, right? Because like, who wears this?
In that bank.
I mean,
I thought she was a real estate agent.
Clearly, none of us know.
Because it didn't matter. What she did didn't matter. Like what she did.
Why are you carrying a briefcase if you work at a bank? Like, I don't get it.
And I'm sorry, but nobody looks that perfect every day to go to a bank job. Like, the only time I feel like you look that well is a movie star, or, you know, like they even wake up in the morning and they're like stretching and like sitting up. And I'm like, oh, okay, you have eyeliner and mascara on still from yesterday.
Yeah. And we also, Tessa and I discussed, like, I don't even think it's just makeup. I think this show fucks with us on a different level. They are using cinematography to like fuck with us, because those girls' faces, it looks like an Instagram filter.
Yeah. And I was like, it couldn't just be the lights. Like, you know, the lights can really help you. But I'm like,
the makeup is great.
It's too much. Come on.
But they were blurred. There were times where I looked at Arya and I'm like, her face is blurred.
Yeah.
Like they are blurring them to us.
I just want to know who made that decision, and was it a white male? Because I don't know who made those decisions, but I just feel like
I know.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even have the words for it other than just. Ugh.
But tell me that wasn't part of the addictive nature of it, though, because it was so beautiful. So like it was unrealistic and terrible and terrible messaging, but like their look and their hair and all of that made it even like easier to watch. And like it was just really oof. And the fact they're like much older. I mean, they're clearly like not a teen.
Oh yeah, they're high school kids. Yeah, and I saw Arya with a wrinkle around her eye, and I was like, of course. But you're 16, it's fine. So really, her and Ezra isn't that bad because they're both like almost 25.
Right. She's probably the same age.
He's probably 30 and she's probably like 24 or 25. I will say that I liked the character development of Mona. I mean, season 1.
Love Mona. Sorry.
Yeah, but like, she's, you know, we are
my
the
number
same
one
person.
character.
We're going back to it.
Yeah.
But good. I mean, she plays so many parts very well, because we know in further seasons that we're not going to talk about, you know, how her character development is. But in the beginning, she's just like this nerdy girl who got a chance to put those heels on that make you walk like a giraffe, and she does it flawlessly. So
right. But they do the whole like she's all that with her and Hannah, like try to make these like pretty girls ugly or like nerdy. They just like throw on glasses or something on Mona. And Hannah, they like they gave her like a baggy sweater. It was just like maybe even a pillow in one of the, and I was like, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
The diet advice and lack of body positivity in the show really is another low.
There's one other low that I just thought about, and it was with the photographer, the yearbook guy, because Mona and Allison kept calling him Hermie, the hermaphrodite. Like, in what world is that okay to say?
I did
Like,
not
what?
understand why they were calling. I thought it was hermit, and then they said hermaphrodite, and I was like, "You got to be kidding!" That
And
was
all
just
the
a casual joke.
references. Yeah.
Mona was all
It's just
about it.
crazy. Yeah.
They'd make
she
jokes
said
about
it a
like
lot.
him getting, she said it the most. And just quick break. I have 5 minutes left in this meeting. I have no idea why. So we might get cut off. I'll let you guys know when it's a minute, and then I will stop it. It'll create the file, and then I'll send out a new link. I don't know why it does this to me like only every once in a while.
It's because I'm on with you.
Probably. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Mona's a bully.
Mona is she is the every girl. I love Mona. She is by far my favorite character because I think she's what we think we do if given the opportunity to like parrot the bad behavior of like whoever is behaving badly towards us is Mona. Like if you were bullied as a teen, like you would be Mona. You would just be like, I now have the power. Because I think everyone kind of thinks that, oh, when I'm a senior, I'm going to rule the school type thing. But just like to an extreme because Mona's a little crazy. I mean, that's not. Are we allowed to say crazy? I want to take that back.
I mean, this show gives you a lot of words that you're like, I don't even want to say that. So I think for the purpose of the show, it's okay.
Yeah, she has mental health issues that are undiagnosed, which is always an interesting like underlayer to these series, especially from the 2010s, because compared to now, like they would just call a mental health disorder instead of just letting them be presented as like crazy and unhinged and like, you know,
Violent.
What is it? Bunny boiler person?
Bunny boiler.
Yeah. Instead of just letting that narrative ride that women are crazy. Bitches be crazy, which is my favorite way to say it.
I would say a low of mine also was every single one of Spencer's choices. She is used in this show as the like super intelligent, like one that you should listen to. She makes the worst choices, including her fashion.
I also think that we haven't talked about Jenna in the stepbrother Kobe. What was his
Jenna?
Name?
Toby.
Toby. I'm like Kobe. I mean, the fact that like we're in 2010 and they're talking about siblings doing it. I mean, more triggers. Like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
And do we know Jenna's age? Because she looks 40. With her sunglasses on, and it's concerning to me, and I don't understand. Like, so she's so mature looking, like it just doesn't make sense to me.
This Jenna character makes so many other tropes that I've seen in like other movies make sense. That like there's a blind character who like doesn't act as though she's blind, and I was like, at any moment she's going to take these sunglasses off because she knows where everything is through some sort of sixth sense. Never really looks like she's using the walking stick or Toby to help or guide her, and I was like, how? She's looking directly at either the character she's speaking to, or like she's hitting her mark,
and she knows who they are. When they come up, does she smell them? Like,
she has sixth sense.
Yeah.
And I forget, is Jenna blind? For real?
I don't know how a fire makes you blind. I was confused by that. She has not
without
a single
any burns,
scar.
like no burns, because she's got to be beautiful, right? So no burns, nothing, but she's blind.
Doesn't matter.
You know, smoke got in her eyes, and it just, happened to make her blind.
Yeah,
and maybe it could happen. I mean, I don't know. I am not an expert, but I don't see it being logical.
Yeah, I'm also not a fire scientist, so I can't disprove this theory that fire could make you blind. But also, just the moment when Allison throws that firecracker in there, she so obviously sees that there's someone in there. Like, she pauses and she's like, I don't know, should I still do this? Yep. And I was just like, how? You're just like evil to your core. In your soul, there's a bit that's evil. Yeah, Allison's a little evil. She makes to say she makes up for it is a it might be a slight overreach, but she, she has a story. She has a life. She has a reason. There's a reason behind all the madness, and you'll get to it as you go through the seasons. And she's in the spinoff series, and I like her a lot better there. She's like a real grown ass woman. So I was like, fine, Allison.
But she plays. She's like a Lolita character in Pretty Little Liars, like a dead Lolita, right? Because she comes across, she carries herself pretty sexually. And it's just very bizarre. Oh, and I think I read somewhere that she was like 12 when they started filming. She was very, very, very young when they started filming.
Maybe 14, but like 12.
Much younger than them. Here, I'll look it up. Allison's age.
I mean, I could see that because I could tell the transition that was going on. I'm like, oh, she looks so much older now. I do remember thinking that. Yeah. So it definitely was an impressionable year where you change a lot.
Because the girls don't seem to look any different. Yeah, she was 13 playing a 15-year-old.
That's creepy.
But so she looked older. She looked much older, and the girls were like probably like 20-somethings playing 15-year-olds.
Weird. I did not know that.
And she's the like jerk. Right? She's like the one that it's just really interesting thinking about that girl playing that role and like really like having control over those girls that are actually older than her. Just very strange.
Yeah.
And before
it's just a new little sub basement we found. I don't like that fact at all.
A new little cellar. And I wanted to bring up, because we didn't talk about this when we brought up, I just did a little more research. And the Ezra Aria thing, I totally forgot. Well, so the age of consent is 16 in Pennsylvania, but you could only consent to people who are 18 or younger. So it is, as we thought it, totally statutory rape. And as a teacher, like around that time, 100%, like 5 to 10 years. And then it makes it worse because later, in the later seasons, I forgot, but we learned that he knew exactly who she was and how old she was because he was writing the book.
Yeah.
And started dating her. It's so fucked. And then they get married. Don't they get married?
Wasn't there some weird thing that he had a second family too? Or maybe somebody died, a wife partner. I don't actually remember. I just know that Ezra seems like a good guy, but he is not fooling any of us.
No, not for a second. Not for a second.
It seems
that
so
weepy
weird.
English major bullshit. Ugh.
It seems so weird at the time, but it's even more disturbing now. And like he was an adult, but like they dumbed him down. They made him a little bit of like a man child, and then they made Aria seem like she was so mature. Remember, she'd get like so appalled when he'd be like, you know, you can't control your parents or something. And she's like, what? And so it made it seem like she was giving this like artificial consent, right? Like she was sort of a Lolita.
She was pursuing it. He kept rebuffing her and she kept pursuing him. And I'm like,
he wanted it from the beginning. And for reasons that would be shitty for anybody to pursue someone. Is Ezra in jail? Lock Ezra up.
You know, there comes another part that you got to look back and I'm like, okay, why is this happening? And it's like, okay, well, look at Aria's parents. I mean, they're not great role models either. Her dad got caught
with a teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or with a student.
It was like a teacher. Yeah, it was a student teacher thing. And I mean, even just the way that he talks about Aria. I remember one time when before they like squashed the whole fact about mom not knowing about the cheating situation, and Aria storms off and he goes, well, you know, teenage girls, they're hormonal and unpredictable. And I'm just like, ew, first of all, you don't get to say that. And second of all, like, what kind of role model is that, to just like be okay with your choices and then not allow your child to just live their teenage life?
Because she doesn't understand. She's not old enough to understand that adults can fuck a student, but a student can't fuck a teacher. Well, a teacher, but a student can't fuck a teacher. You're just a baby.
Yeah.
I was just like so struck, but like first, like, you know, not for a relatively simple show, like I was like very struck by this mirroring of like a generational like trauma just succeeding its way down the line. And I was like, watch, if the story continued, I'm sure his brother would have slept with like the nurse or something, like just because no one's explaining the wrongness of this behavior and its effect. They're just like living through each other's cycles. And I was so like disappointed in the mom a little bit, only because I think she does say it at some point, but when she calls out the father for asking Arya to keep this secret for him, I was like, that was just beyond wrong, in my opinion. Yeah. Beyond, like, I would have left him on that principle of that alone. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
But also, Arya tried to file a police report. Like, they find out later that she wrote up a police report that she did not end up filing.
About the making out?
About being with Ezra, because they definitely sleep together at some point.
Yeah.
And,
you know what's also interesting though is like you think about 2010 to now, and I think that this whole situation with the parents cheating and stuff, I don't even know if it would be that big of a deal anymore. One, because we're so sensitized, and two, because so many people are just like, I'm in an open relationship and that's fine. Let's just make sure we communicate about it. So I don't even know if it's really that big of a deal, but it was like ongoing throughout the whole season.
Yeah. I feel like now, like, especially if you're like declaratively in an open relationship, this wouldn't be a big deal. Like, it's,
right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So wait, so we've given Arya a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
We've given Arya a lot of attention. I would like to move to Spencer because she is baffling. I can't
believe she kissed not only one of her sister's partners, but two of her sister's partners, and being like, "What? Did I do something wrong? I know it was wrong," and then still do it anyway.
And then steal her paper.
Well, she was kissing, I think, Ren for 30 seconds before she was like, "Oh my God, this is wrong." And it's like, "Oh, sweetie, please."
And then
he kissed me. He kissed me. Doesn't matter. He kissed him back.
Right. The person you kissed them if you didn't push them off right away. Like you definitely kissed.
That's where I feel like females can go wrong sometimes. Like, we're used to using our body for sex and blah blah blah, especially back then, right? But like we're not always in the forefront of knowing that, oh well, we probably did something wrong too. Like, you should have never kissed him in the first place, let alone a second partner.
Yeah. And it's the powerlessness of it. Like, you shouldn't have flirted with him, and just because he kissed you doesn't mean you have to kiss him back. Like, there's also that piece of it.
Yeah. And well, Ian's the other person, and I'm gonna say that Ian's not any better. I mean, look at Hello. But he like shows up from that back door and his shirt's all out, and Spencer just can't like take her eyes off him. And I'm like, okay, so he's a tease and she's gonna fall for it anyway. So,
and then her sister is, she's made out to be this like total bitch, and she has this younger sister that is kissing like her fiancés and stealing her papers. I would have punched Spencer in the face.
Yeah.
And she was made out to be totally evil, and like, and then she goes and says something to the guy from the club, right? From the country club, and makes up the thing about Spencer dating him. And like, shitty, but I think fine. In those circumstances, if you want to screw over your little sister, I'm behind you. I feel bad that you're making him feel bad. He is just a pawn, but I'm behind you taking some action of revenge. 100%.
I think I missed so much of that exact scene because I was so distracted by the way her hair looked. I felt like she was out of
up here.
She was out of like the swimsuit catalog of 1985, and
very fair faucet.
Like, they all have great hair, but that one in particular, I just kept laughing, and I don't even know why, because she's trying to sabotage her sister, and I'm like, your hair. What is that? And you're like the prom queen, and that's what you came up with.
And why are you there? Like, it just, I mean, I get it, they invite you, but why do all these adults want to be around this cast of girls? I'm like,
what happens when you don't leave home?
I don't want to go to a prom as an adult. Like and then to sabotage, like people need to like, everyone makes them so important. And I just don't understand. I'm like, they're 16-year-olds. I would not be there. There's nothing about that situation.
I would probably go if I had the right influences, and I'd just people watch. So I might actually still go.
Watching.
I'd be a chaperone. Yeah.
People watching is one thing, but they're not people watching. They're like trying to find out what all the girls are up to. And I'm like, okay. So formulaic wise, the show was developed for commercials, right? Like commercial breaks. And how is it possible to have 90% of the scenes end with thematic music, like scary little, like moody music, and then just a close up of one of them, and listeners, you can't see me, but like going like this.
I was going to talk about that too. At the end of a lot of those episodes, they're on their phone. They just got a message from A, and the music starts, and they just look up into the distance like, sweetie, what are you looking at?
Every single one. And even throughout one episode, there's like 4 different stops, and it's on one of their faces just, and I'm like, I mean, that's easy. It's just like so, and I never noticed it before because I don't think I binged it. So I noticed it because like I'm just seeing it constantly. And then Tessa and I also discussed, and Leslie, let me know if you noticed this too. Like, why do they have to gaslight us with recaps that don't include scenes, that include other
really
scenes
that
weren't in the show, that clearly pushed the plot along? I'm like, did I not? I watched that one beginning to end. I did not see that scene.
Very true. Like, where did it come from? Was it part of the outtakes? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was just crazy. I was like, no, you went to the bathroom or got another beer. I don't know. You did something, you missed it. But I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
That's what I thought too. And then I after like binging, I was like, no, this is not happening every time. It did. It was not in the episode. I cannot believe you're doing this to me, and you're not explaining it somewhere. And they do that with Bachelorette too. They do that with other shows, but like, I don't like it. Don't give me a recap of something that didn't happen. It's not a recap. Don't say previously on Pretty Little Liars, and it didn't happen. I don't like it. Anyways.
In the life of Tricia.
I don't like it. I don't like having TV gaslight me. I already feel the world's gaslighting me. So Spencer, she's terrible. I mean, I can't, like, I don't get it.
She's just never sorry. You can just tell that she's never sorry, and it just bothers me.
Never.
Like, she's always like shameful or has shame about being caught doing the thing, but she never ever feels bad about doing it. And I was like, she's some sort of sociopath. She must be.
She is the most like a sociopath, like just as bad as Allison, I think, out of any of and Mona, but like Spencer just seems to me just as
she's just
scary.
so high functioning is what makes her scary. I was like, she's just so effective.
She makes the worst decisions. Like Hannah, they make her out to be this like, kind of like a blonde bimbo, and she's not, and she bumbles things up, but like she doesn't see, like Spencer doesn't have a soul.
Wow.
Very manipulative. Yeah. I was gonna say that's a classic manipulative type situation where somebody's like, I know that I don't know, needy or something. I know I'm needy. Okay, well, just because you can say it doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. What do you want from me?
Example, but you get my point.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's a reasonable expectation for me to have, like, give you all of my time because you're needy.
Yeah. Right. Or like, I'm sorry that you apologized or said you didn't want to kiss 2 of her boyfriends, but you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
And then she's upset. Like, she's like, I'm sorry. What do you want from me? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think that just happened. I think you just kissed him. Like, it's been a week. And what, you think you're being punished? Like,
yeah,
her sister's allowed to be pissed at her. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. I was like, how are we framing this as though the sister is being wildly unreasonable? Reasonable.
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. Even when her sister is Melissa, right?
Yeah.
I think. And Melissa's like, when did we just start hating each other? And Spencer's like, well, I didn't know we hated each other. And it's like, hello, you kissed two of her boyfriends, among other things. What do you mean she doesn't hate you? And she was like so shocked that Melissa was like saying the word hate.
It's crazy. Like, her character frightened me. And then Arya, like, I'm just like, Iceland, your parents.
We haven't talked about Allison yet.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. Allie, yeah, she was like a queen bee mean girl, right? Like, I mean, but I honestly, unfortunately, because I didn't watch any of the other seasons, I forget what Allison is like when she comes back to Rosewood. Like, what is she like?
She's the same, but like has more stories to manipulate you with. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's manipulative.
I don't know.
For sure.
Very much so. But
she's
I
mean.
also like, she's one of those people that when she's mean, she laughs. So then you're like, oh, wait, did you just say something to hurt my feelings? I can't tell because you're laughing. Yeah. And then like an hour later, you're like, that was rude as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very, very mean. And there was a scene that bothered me in particular with her and Emily, where she's in the locker room and it's after they'd kissed and she's undressing, talking to her shirtless, ask her to put a bra on and snap it. And then Emily like kisses her on the neck and then she gaslights her. And then Emily goes to walk away. And then she's like, where are you going? You're my ride. And I was like, oh, the ping-ponging right there made me so uncomfortable because I would hope I would have the guts in that situation to just leave and not take her home. Because it's one thing to say you don't want to be kissed. It's another to like totally tear down the person who is your friend and had no reason to think that you were just kissing her for the fuck of it. And then like and she just stays there.
Talk about play of emotions to somebody who's vulnerable.
Then Emily stays. And to drive her home, I'm just like, oh, I hate this.
Yeah. I feel like I've been in several of those situations and you're like, well, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure you put the idea in my head, but I'm the one who's wrong because I acted on it. Cool.
Right. Cool. How dare you?
You know,
yes.
I don't walk away.
Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting, you just mentioned about having guts is like, there are so many times where I was shocked by whatever character. One of them is Emily when Ben like abused her, like tried to like make out with her and all that shit in the car. And then they broke up because he wouldn't take no for an answer. And then she goes to this party and he sends up to her and he's like, oh, so you came? And she's like, yeah, I did. Just not with you. And like these types of scenes, I'm like, damn, I wish I had that at 17. I would have probably like had like a ghost looking face or I mean, maybe I would have thrown a drink in your face, but I wouldn't have had those kind of words.
Yeah. They didn't backtrack a lot and they didn't justify their actions, which I thought was really awesome. Like they weren't really paying that much attention to the men in their lives or the boys in their lives, except Arya to Ezra. But like they were always the guys were always sort of chasing them. Like the boys weren't their first priority. And they didn't justify like changing their mind. And I kind of liked that. And they even speak to it in later seasons. Caleb is like, well, Hannah always just does whatever she wants. And I'm like, at that age, to do that, I think is actually pretty good because society will take a hold of you and you will not always be doing what you want. So I did like that with some of them. I'm like, zero justification for regular actions like canceling plans or like, I can't do this or no, not right now. But Spencer needed to explain her actions because they were so bad. But like the rest of them, like just no.
Yeah.
The answer's
and
no.
Spencer's the most image conscious. She's the most well, and I think it comes from that competitive spirit, like between her parents and this need to succeed and to be perceived in a way. And so, yeah, I can't just say no to something. I resonate with Spencer on like we did not have a similar experience in high school, but I resonate with you in terms of like being like very like hyper focused on school and succeeding and achieving and doing the things that you're supposed to do to get into college and having that be like a primary focus. But I struggle with that too, justifying, like if I'm going to say no to something, I also have to tell you why I'm saying no. I'm like,
me
no,
too. I
just don't want to. Yeah.
Let's discuss whether we think these are SFLs or not.
Okay.
So like I know, I just want to keep talking about it forever.
I was like, don't ruin a beautiful thing with our criteria.
I know. It's the only thing we give that's consistent. The only thing we have in terms of consistency for this podcast. So here is the SFL criteria. We want to we decide whether the lead is top billed. Sorry. SFL criteria is the lead top billed? Does the character impact the plot or move the story forward? And does the character have agency? And sometimes then we also look at whether any scenes in this show passes the Bechdel test, which I think a lot of them do in this.
Yeah.
So for as backwards as it is, it definitely passes Bechdel. But so let's start with Leslie.
Oh, shit. Okay. So am I just supposed to talk about everybody, or like, are we talking about Allison? Like what we
5.
grade her?
I think the liars and Allison, is that 5? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I can put myself in almost any situation. So I do feel like all of the characters grow. Like by the end of season 1, even, they're all realizing their mistakes and like, doing what as a human species we do. We have experiences and then we try to grow from that. So I do think that they're all growing, and maybe that makes me not the best person to answer that because I do have compassion for every single one of them.
No, girl, you're right, because this to me, these are SFLs. Like as problematic as the show is, like they fit the SFL criteria. They're all top billed. They're all the primary players. They impact the plot and move it along. All of them have agency and exercise that agency for better or for worse. And it passes Bechdel test all over the place. Like it's very conflicting to me because there are a lot of issues with it, but these are all SFLs to me.
I agree also. I think that all of these characters are SFLs. I really enjoyed that even the, quote unquote villain is an SFL. Be it Mona or spoilers. Be it Mona or Allison. Or there are quite a few A's to come.
No one is going to listen to this episode unless they've already seen the show. I guarantee it.
This is true. But I appreciate a strong female villain as a lead also. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that a lot of the conversation centered around the mystery. Everyone was involved in the mystery with their secrets. I really liked it. Although I do disagree with some of their actions, I do agree that they all display agency. They're all making choices, be it right or wrong. And I love that those choices aren't perfect, even though some of them are at an extreme in the wrong. But I love that they're not always like making the best choice.
Yeah,
and they're like falling on their faces, getting up and being like very supportive of each other. I really like that, to see female friendship that is just extremely supportive. They weren't questioning each other's decisions. They weren't like, there was a couple of like, oh, why are you doing it that way? But like don't do it. I don't like that journey for you. Things like that.
Well, sometimes they just trusted.
I know.
That's the hardest thing in the world, is to be like, I don't agree with you potentially until you give me a reason, but you're not going to give me the reason, so I just have to trust you. Okay.
Yeah. And the SFLs, it's great when the SFLs are characters that we don't you don't necessarily like, because there needs to be more of those. I think the themes are more problematic. But the themes are the problematic part, not the characters to me. It's like the way they're represented, but it's not the way that they develop, not the way they handle situations. Like those are all SFLs. And the Bechdel test, for our listeners that don't know, that is a very simple yet powerful test that you can use while watching TV shows and movies, and just ask yourself, is there a scene in this episode or in this movie in which the following occurs? Two female characters talking to each other about something other than a man. And you would be shocked. There are so many movies and TV shows that do not pass that test. And Marlene King, who also created Gilmore Girls, right?
I don't know. I know she did the Now and Then movie, which was very obvious, having watched Pretty Little Liars, that she's also involved in both of these.
Yeah,
but she's very strong hand.
She's good for that kind of thing. There's definitely some problems, but like it really is all focused on the females.
Yeah, and it's not unrealistic, the problems that they're going to, like some other shows where it's just like, really, just like, this doesn't happen in the real world. Like all the situations, aside from a friend faking their death.
And what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, in terms of like being in like a semi-tense relationship with someone who's inappropriate for you. Like that's not uncommon. I just wish we could show younger people how to navigate that better. But it's not an uncommon thing that happens in the world. Or I lost weight and now I don't know who I am. I'm struggling with my family and they're putting too much pressure on me. Like it's not that far gone. Aside from the faking the death thing, which I hope for everyone is very far outside of your friendships, outside of your life, that people in your life aren't just falling off the face of the earth and then sending you random texts.
What do you think the filmmakers are saying about femininity and masculinity?
Ooh,
masculinity was semi-irrelevant, which I appreciated. We don't need to have every story be about chasing men and them being like overbearing or in any way toxic. I mean, not that those things weren't represented in the show, but it wasn't centered on those things, which I appreciated.
But femininity was portrayed as like the girls were strong, but they also fell into a lot of the stereotypes in order to keep the men around, especially the mom.
Yeah, well, I totally agree to that. I feel like moving here in Chicago, I totally submitted myself into queer community and I felt like I've learned so much and still am learning. So going back and watching this show and just being like, oh my God, I feel like I had so many of these traits at certain times, like the way that I had to act, like I was always, confident and strong, but deep down, I like wanted to like go underneath my covers and never surface again. And I think that femininity of, always having to be dolled up with makeup, like you couldn't just look like your natural self. I mean, the outfits, I didn't see, even Emily, minus her sporty outfit, didn't have any androgyny really to her look, in my opinion. Not that I know that scale. It's, very gray, and I think people should just do what they want. But it is very hard for me to look at that and be like, and I wonder why I felt moving here that I had to be a certain way. And it's because of the way society has always made you feel.
Tessa, you had some wise words. What were your words?
Every time, like, I feel like I'm being set up and it's going to sound like really dumb, but in a good way. In a good way. I'm still going to say it. I got to express myself, This is strong female lead. That's what we do here.
Speak your truth.
Yes.
But I feel like what you're saying, Leslie, is like so much of my like journey in 2020 and like understanding self is kind of like separating feminine expression from necessarily who I am innately. And that chasing feminine expression has led me down a weird, like twisty rabbit hole to somewhere I'm just like in wanting to pursue like my presentation of femininity in a certain way, I lose who I am and aspects of who I am like innately. Like some things I just don't love, but I feel like I should love because like that is what fits in with like a feminine expression. And to be not even, I guess beyond even like cisgendered, to feel feminine is at times a rejection of masculinity, which is the part that's really hard for me. Because I was like, to do something in a feminine way is the negative alternative to doing it in a masculine way, which would be like a more direct way. And I was like, what's wrong with doing it in a direct way? And I just feel like all of 2020, I was just constantly with that pushback of, or that, you know, within self, and then like in the greater world also, of like, the way that I want to do things are telling me I can't do because I am female, or I
fuck that,
show up female. And I'm like, I don't like, I just like get caught off guard with how deep some of the programming goes. And then I catch it, and then it just completely throws me off my game. And you're like, and then I just kind of have that realization where I'm like, so the reason why you're reacting to me and the world is reacting to me in a certain way is because my expression of femininity doesn't suit your need. Is that what you're saying?
And we need to redefine femininity. That's the issue, is because femininity equates with, you know, soft, indirect, you know, more subtle, like ways of expression. I don't know. I think femininity is, there's power, and I don't think in femininity, and I don't want to strip that away and have strong female leads only be strong female leads because they're presenting masculine. That's the flip side of like strong female lead and how they tend to be displayed. It's like a man, a female that a man wants to fuck, but she has masculine traits.
Yeah.
Those are like the typical strong
it's very much
leads.
the 80s in femininity to me is like the epitome of like a man who's presenting feminine. I mean, but like, what is innate to you, what is good about you, what is like intrinsic to that character are masculine traits that are just in a female package. Yeah.
And I feel not you also because I do get backlash because I have some very masculine personality traits.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it just happens mostly in the way I present in relationships. That's where it is seen the most. And, you know, like I have more masculine traits. I present in a more masculine way in my relationship with Zach than Zach does in terms of how our relationship works, not the external working, you know, like he's a doctor, he works a ton, you know, all that kind of stuff, not that way, but the way we relate, there's a lot of flip-flop with it. And I've always gotten pushback about the parts of me that weren't overtly feminine.
So that makes me think of challenging just the words that as a society we use. I don't think that femininity or masculinity, what's that word? Masculine.
Yeah. What is that word?
Yeah.
I don't think that they should have labels. I think that if you feel that you're in your mind masculine and you're wearing a dress, I don't think that it should have those labels to it. And I think that as I hope a society is, we're still, you know, progressing forward, that we get rid of some of those things, because I don't think it's fair when somebody looks at me all the time as a queer, lesbian, you know, hairdresser, that I am constantly feminine. And it's like, okay, but I grew up with 65 years of men. And deep down in my brain, you have no idea what that means. And
wait, you grew up with 65 years of men?
Yeah. So there are no women outside of marrying into the family. In my family, I'm the only Robinson that is a girl for 65 years.
Whoa.
And so I grew up with all the boy stuff, you know, especially back in the 80s and 90s, of playing football and beating each other up. And, you know, I didn't put lipstick and play with Barbies. I blew up G.I. Joes with firecrackers, and, you know, got told I was a girl if I didn't go jump off this ramp that we built and break my foot or something weird like that. But my point is that I don't feel that there should be all these labels to, you know, words. I think that if you want to tell yourself you feel masculine today, then you can. And if you want to tell yourself that I feel feminine today, then that's how you feel. And it should be more about a feeling than a label of a word.
How about if we just are who we are? Like,
exactly.
Neither masculine nor feminine. I know that we're not even close to that place, but
well, that's what I tell people all the time.
We're progressing.
I'm me. Yeah, I am.
I think the fact that we're progressing is making those labels more confusing. So I think it's a good sign that they are confusing to us now, but it's because we're still trying to understand ourselves and the world using them as markers.
And that's when big change happens. If we look at history, chaos always happens before it settles. So empires fall before, new ones are built. So hopefully, it's a whole nother bag, but hopefully we're going forward for sure.
And we are an empire truly that I thought was going to fall in 2020, but I don't think like, this is really dark, but I just do not think the US in the way that we understand the US, like, will be around as long as we think it will be.
I agree to that.
It just won't, like, and we're so young anyways as a country. I'm like, why do we think that we are going to last as long as like the Roman Empire did or something like that? Like, we're self-destructing already anyways.
Definitely went down a dark hole from Pretty Little Liars. Maybe Allison's down there, I don't know.
She is down there. We are talking about it.
It's just like super interesting to like have this type of conversation like in like your various communities, because this conversation goes so differently like on the podcast Strong Female Lead as opposed to like even my friends from home who have a much more like conservative background. A conversation of identity is so different with them, and then just like in the Black community in general, it is a very different conversation, and then just between the generations. And I think that's where my frustration comes from, is mostly between the generations. And I'm just
I don't know, I have friends who still won't identify as feminists, female friends.
Struggle with calling myself a feminist. Like, I understand.
It's equal access.
That's a very generic definition, and feminism
that's the feminist theory, though.
But that's not how it's always used. Like, there's nuance to how it's used, and that's some of the things that I disagree with. Like, if we're talking feminist means men and women are equal but different, that's fine. I agree with that, but the nuanced way that it's used oftentimes, I do find it hard to identify with sometimes, depending on who's saying it in the context. Like,
interesting. I don't have a problem with it.
It doesn't always apply to every
people
group
different
equally. So I'm like, feminism in the generic way, yes, it completely applies. But like when it applies to me specifically as a Black woman in the United States, it functions differently for me. And I do have a problem always calling myself a feminist. But if that's the definition, that we're just talking about men and women are equal,
that's the definition, the baseline definition that I'm thinking of.
I always assume that people are arguing with nuance and not like, I don't know a woman who would say I'm less than, unless that's how you feel your friends are interpreting.
That's what I think I think the way they were interpreting. So I'm thinking of just like the baseline theory without everything else compounded, because I know there are a lot of different layers and social layers, economic layers, and all of that. I mean, the baseline theory, I know people who kind of think saying that they're a feminist means, like, I think you can be a feminist and decide that you are an individual that wants to stay at home with your children. Like, I don't think that you can't be a feminist if you want to do that. Like, I don't think it's pushing the things, the real theory, the baseline theory is pushing the things that people, they interpret it that way.
I find it most easy for me, and people that know me understand this about me, but I find it to be at least calming to be like, well, what do you mean by that? Instead of assuming. I have so many situations where I assume something and it's 99% wrong. Where if we just take a step back, and instead of trying to act like we know all the answers to things and then getting somebody's side of the story, often it's not what you thought at all. And that's, I think, what is so great about who we are, but also what the biggest challenge is as a species. So
great way to bring down an argument is just to stay curious, for sure. To kind of like, Guys, oh my God. Leslie.
There's so much here. Ugh.
Leslie, I'm so happy that you came on.
I'm so glad that you guys had me on.
Tell us where the listeners can find you. Listeners over the world, like across the world, but also listeners here in Chicago. Plug your business, girl.
Yeah, so I am part of Less is More Hair. I'm the owner and stylist of this company that I've developed. It is in Lakeview West / like Roscoe Village, and this is in Chicago. You can find out more information about me on my website, which is lessismorehair.com. And it's spelled with one S, more like the name, not less is more in the, other senses. What is that? Is that I don't know.
Like less as in Leslie, not less as in more or less.
Yeah. Yeah, not like the metaphor. That's a word I couldn't find. But what I am all about is making people feel like they have a safe space to come in and get their hair done. Some people just really want to talk and, feel like they get that self-care for the day. So I have gender neutral pricing. I charge based on what you have and what we're doing. And that is a very big part of who I am and what I think is right. I don't think that, again, we should be charging based on gender. So, you can also find me on my Instagram, which is at Less is More Hair.
And what is your tagline? I'm trying to find it on the website. I love it.
If your hair is not becoming to you, you should be coming to me.
Yes.
I love that. Oh, it's so
Thank
good.
you.
I love it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to our episode today. Next week, we will be doing Pretty Little Liars, The Perfectionist. So if you're already like a Liars fiend, then you need to watch The Perfectionist if you haven't already and tune into that episode. And in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram at Strong Female Pod.
Yep. And tweet at us your suggestions for movies and TV in March. We are keeping this train going and always looking for your suggestions. And we are SFL_Chicago on Twitter.
And rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We're looking to quit our day jobs. Just kidding. I might cut that.
Yes. Always.
And I think that's it. Thank you again, Leslie, for coming on.
Thank you.
It was so nice meeting you. And I hope to be on some other fun show that we can banter about as well in the future.
Yes, we would love to have you back. That was so fun. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So until next time, bye.
Bye.